In the grand tapestry of Game of Thrones, few threads were as perplexing and ominous as that of the White Walkers. Despite their looming presence throughout the series, our understanding of these enigmatic beings remained shrouded in mystery. With the conclusion of the show, many questions were left unanswered, leaving fans to grapple with the enigmatic nature of these creatures of legend. Now that the dust has settled on the battle for the Iron Throne, it's time to peel back the layers of one of the most enduring mysteries in Westeros, the true origin of the White Walkers. The most popular fan theories suggest they were made either by the Children of the Forest as a biological weapon against the invading First Men, or as an unintended consequence of powerful magic wielded by the First Men themselves. But could there be something more, something even older and darker lurking beneath the surface of this tale? To fully understand this theory, we need to first re-establish the White Walkers as the ultimate existential threat in the Game of Thrones universe. We know from the series that they are capable of harnessing the power of ice to deadly effect. They can raise the dead as their thralls called Whites grow stronger in cold temperatures, wield an army of mammoth proportions, and seemingly have some form of mind control over their victims. While the Night King was ultimately defeated and his army decimated, there's nothing to suggest that this is the last of the White Walkers. Jon Snow noted that beyond the wall in the far north, winter lasts a long time, and the Night King who raised him claimed to be just one of many kings who had risen before him. If they had not been stopped, there's no telling how much destruction they would have wrought across Westeros. And while it might seem like hyperbole to say that the entire continent could have been frozen in a heartbeat, given their powers over ice and snow, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't have fared well in open battle against the living, especially as they were able to survive nuclear winter. This is why it's important to remember that the White Walkers represented the greatest danger to the people of Westeros of all time. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video. It helps a lot and is much appreciated. Now, let's get back to the topic at hand. The Children of the Forest created the White Walkers. This is perhaps the most well-known fan theory regarding the origins of the Walkers, and it's also the easiest to believe given the lore established in the books and show. According to this narrative, the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers as a biological weapon against the invading First Men. In the show, it was stated outright that the Children of the Forest felt threatened by the encroaching First Men and sought to repel them through any means necessary. One could argue that creating an unstoppable killing machine that thrived in the cold north was a pretty extreme measure to take. However, if we take the Children of the Forest at their word, this is exactly what they felt compelled to do. Given their deep connection to the land and ancient knowledge of its harshest environments, it makes sense that they would seek to exploit the natural world to their advantage. When we look at the lore of the White Walkers, it's easy to see why so many people believe that the Children of the Forest created them. After all, they do seem like an extreme solution to the problems facing the Children of the Forest at the time. But there are some issues with this theory that cannot be ignored. To begin with, the children of the forest were known to be peaceful and non-violent creatures, who preferred to live in harmony with nature rather than dominate it. This is evidenced by their interactions with humans throughout history, as well as their own internal conflicts. Even when faced with extinction, they still choose to negotiate rather than resort to violence. As such, it seems out of character for them to create such a brutal and merciless weapon. Additionally, the children of the forest were known for their healing abilities and deep connection to nature, creating an army of monstrous creatures that preyed on human life would have been a betrayal of everything they stood for. It's hard to imagine that a group of pacifistic tree-dwelling humanoids would create such a violent weapon, unless they felt backed into a corner. But what if there is more to the story? What if there is an ancient and even darker truth behind the creation of the White Walkers that has been lost to time, but remembered by some through fragmented prophecy or legend? It may very well be that the children of the forest did create the White Walkers as a last resort against the first men, but they weren't the first to do so. A forgotten origin. Long before the children of the forest ever set eyes on a White Walker, there were the first men. These mysterious beings are said to have arrived in Westeros aboard the first ships to sail across the Sunset Sea. Little is known about their origins, but it's believed that they were more akin to the Valyrians than the first men who came after them. The first men were known to be fierce warriors and skilled navigators, but it was their mastery of magic that truly set them apart. Some say their knowledge of sorcery was unmatched, allowing them to bend the elements to their will and commune with the gods directly. It's possible that this very magic was used to create the White Walkers, but not intentionally. Let's imagine that during the early days of the first men in Westeros, the leaders of their tribes sought to commune with the spirits of the cold north. Through rituals, spells, and sacrifices, they hoped to gain favor with these entities and secure their blessings. But they had no way of knowing that these spirits were malevolent and twisted, or that their gifts would come at a terrible price. Perhaps the first men unwittingly opened the door to some dark and ancient evil, unleashing a force that should never have been disturbed. As a result, the White Walkers were born, twisting the very essence of the cold north and turning it against those who dared to disturb it. Over time, these creatures grew in power, becoming a constant threat to the first men and their descendants. Yet the first men refused to listen to the warnings of those who had seen the horrors of the White Walkers, choosing instead to ignore the signs and press on with their rituals. This led to a terrible and inevitable fate, one that nearly wiped out all life in Westeros and ushered in a new era of darkness and despair. While this theory is purely speculative, it does offer an interesting explanation for the origins of the White Walkers and their seemingly unstoppable nature. It also provides a compelling backstory for the first men, suggesting that their hubris and thirst for power ultimately led to their downfall. But there's another theory that takes things even further, suggesting that the White Walkers are not simply a product of human magic, but of something far more cosmic and terrifying. The Bleeding Star. Long ago, before the dawn of human history in Westeros, the sky blazed with a crimson light. Known as the Bleeding Star, this celestial event is said to have heralded the arrival of a new age, one filled with both wonder and terror. It was during this time that the White Walkers first emerged, drawn to the light of the Bleeding Star and imbued with its power. This theory suggests that the White Walkers are not simply creatures of ice and snow, but are in fact beings of pure energy and light, drawn to the cold north by the promise of immense power. There are many different versions of the Bleeding Star theory, but most agree that the event was caused by a comet or otherworldly entity crashing into the planet. This impact unleashed a wave of cosmic energy that transformed the face of Westeros forever, creating the White Walkers and imbuing them with extraordinary powers. Some believe that the White Walkers are heralds of an even greater cosmic horror that lies dormant within the planet itself, waiting to be awakened. Others believe that the White Walkers are simply pawns in a greater game being played out across the stars, manipulated by forces beyond our understanding. Whatever the truth may be, it's clear that the White Walkers are not simply creatures of legend, but are instead manifestations of some greater cosmic event that has shaped the fate of Westeros and its inhabitants for millennia. But here's the thing, the Bleeding Star isn't the only piece of evidence pointing to a darker, more sinister truth behind the creation of the White Walkers. There are other theories and ideas that suggest that the White Walkers were not simply created by the children of the forest or the first men, but are instead the result of a much older, more insidious force at play. Could there be something even more terrifying lurking beneath the surface of this tale, something that has been lost to time but never truly forgotten? Before the children of the forest ever set foot in Westeros, there were the others. A mysterious race of beings who lived in the far north and were said to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. The others were known to be powerful sorcerers, capable of wielding magic that was as old as the planet itself. Some say they were able to manipulate the very fabric of reality, bending time and space to their will. They were also said to be immortal, or at least capable of living for many thousands of years. And it is this immortality that has led some to believe that the others were responsible for creating the White Walkers. According to this theory, the others created the White Walkers as a means of preserving their own immortality. By imbuing these creatures with the ability to thrive in the cold north, the others ensured that they would always have a place to hide and a way to survive. The icy wastes of the far north became a sanctuary for the others, a place where they could escape the prying eyes of mortals and continue their dark rituals in peace. But the real question is, what does this mean for Westeros? If the White Walkers were truly created by an immortal race of beings, then it stands to reason that their threat is far from over. Even if the Night King and his army were defeated, there's no telling how many of his kind still remain in hiding. biding their time until they can once again rise and claim the frozen wastes as their own. And if the others are still out there, then who knows what other horrors they have in store for the people of Westeros. The truth is that the threat posed by the White Walkers may never truly be over. Even if they can be defeated, their origins suggest that there will always be something lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim the cold north as its own. So the next time you find yourself basking in the glow of victory over the White Walkers, remember that their true origins may hold a much darker truth, and while the Night King may be gone, his kind may still live on, waiting for their chance to return and claim the frozen wastes as their own. Thank you for watching this video. Please like it if you enjoyed it and share your thoughts in the comments.